In a world that has featured, or a year that has featured some crazy things, we did and we have discussed the small business loans, the PPE, the personal paycheck payback loan that the government put out. Now, there's a whole bunch of new news about it, and we have our financial expert, Beck, to discuss some awesome topics. As you know, Cynthia joins us once a month to discuss what you could do to help with your finances and savings. And if you're a small business owner, you don't want to miss this episode. So grab your pens and your paper as we jump into what's going on with small business loans and what can you do now to get a loan if you didn't get one before. All this and more coming up next. And I'm Eric Mitchell. So like I said, we're going to be talking about finances today, and it's come out recently in government reports from the House of Representatives that they've reported that some companies that took $3 billion, that's right, $3 billion, that's a billion with a B, businesses that were already not approved for it were able to apply for these PPE loans. I mean, we already saw it when it came out. We had companies like Shake Shack and Ruth Chris taking loans. The Los Angeles Lakers took a loan, and they're worth an estimated $6 billion. It's still going on. Like, we thought the government was going to be honest and like make sure their friends didn't get loans. No, they took care of those folks. And while doing that, they left American business owners in the lurch. The greatest folks on the planet, small business owners, were left with being told no, while big business made sure the friends got to the front of the line, got their money first, and were always approved. Now, you're asking yourself, how can this be? How could we kill off small business owners? Well, let's play a numbers game. So Amazon and Walmart, two of the biggest competitors in the spot for at-home delivery, their numbers are up over 35%. Add in Lowe's, Home Depot, start going down the list, and you see companies having record just months during COVID-19. It's absolutely bizarre that you go look at small businesses at the same time and you see those businesses either shut down or failed. Businesses all over our country. Yelp released a report back in late August that stated over 60% of businesses inside of their app, their whole app thingy-dingy, in their app constituted, it's amazing, over 60% of these businesses closed permanently. These are our mom and pop shops. The businesses that we choose to support are being shut down and closed down by the big guys. This can't be. It's very frustrating. I know it frustrates me as a small business owner watching friends of mine lose their businesses. So today we're going to talk to our financial expert, Ms. Cynthia Frunze's back to discuss what are some alternatives for you as you get into your going, well, how do I keep my business afloat? The loans are done, it's closed, everybody else got their money. Well, how do I save? And to add into this, that it's also almost Christmas time. That's right, the time to start shopping for Christmas is less than 30 days away from us. A lot of people get started even in this month, but I'm gonna say October just because it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So we have an amazing show for you today. And I'm just excited to talk about this topic. So, like I said before, grab some pens and some paper and make sure you sit down and learn and take down these notes on how you can help your business get through these very dark times that are ahead for so many small business owners as we head into the fall. We're going to have some amazing tips and tricks today. So, you're going to want to stay tuned. And we're going to get to these tips and tricks when we come back from the break. So, get those pens ready, and we'll see you on the other side of this commercial break. Welcome back. Like I said, we got a great guest today talking about finance. So let's get to the point with today's amazing guest. Returning, as always, she returns once a month to answer all of your financial questions, give tips and tricks so you can take them home and put them into effect. And as always, you can always contact today's guest, Cynthia Frunze, and learn more, and she could coach you along the way. But Today, we're going to get our tips and tricks and also learn a little bit about small business. So without further ado, let's get to the point with today's guest, Cynthia Frunze. Welcome to the show, Cynthia. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, Eric. How are you?
I can't believe we're already in September and just a few short days, or hopefully a week or two away from the fall. Summer is, as fast as summer came flying in, summer came leaving, which is, I guess, good so we could get out of 2020. But
Yes.
I guess there's over 100 days left in 2020, and I'm counting every one of them like, let's go 2021. Come on, new shooter on the line. But it's good to have you back on. As I was telling the folks before you came on, you are our financial expert. You come on, we talk about debt. We have so much to talk about. But let's start off with something that you've talked about previously when you've been on. New report came out today from Upwork, a freelancing site that has just seen raising amounts of traffic. So they gave this amazing report. Americans in June traveled 73 billion, that's a billion with a B, less miles than they did the previous June. So we talk about savings all the time, so we're talking saving gas money for darn sure if you're not traveling all these miles to go anywhere. But they said, and this is what took me back just to share this with you, $758 million a day is being saved across the United States because we're not going anywhere. Everybody's working from home. So as someone who sits in the financial world, who sits here and makes people millionaires and helps them achieve success, it's got to warm your heart that people are saving money, and it's almost forcible money saving. So how do you feel about this, people saving money and not even intentionally meaning to?
Well, I've met a lot of people who are now not actually saving it, but they're using it to pay off debt, which is not a bad thing. It's certainly not a bad thing to move the money from one place to the other to get rid of the debt. However, I really wish it was more people actually saving the money. You know, I talked about it when this pandemic started for people who are in debt or people who need to start preparing for their future or anything. We're not going to work and buying lunch. We're not grabbing coffee. We're not driving. We're not using Easy Pass because we are working from home. If we were to take all of that money weekly, sometimes to the tune of almost $100, and put it into an emergency account, a retirement account, or to pay off debt, we would be so much better off. So it would be really great if that was actually happening and these numbers being saved. I still work with a lot of clients and they're getting better, but I heard this horrible report the other day. I even wrote about it. You know, there are people out there that really believe you should not start saving until you're out of debt. And every time I hear somebody say it, I want to scream, because debt is a habit, spending is a habit, as is saving. So I don't care if, you have $100 and you want to take 90 of it and get rid of your debt and 10 of it and save. You've got to start saving. It has to be mandatory, even if it's a little tiny bit. So if those numbers are real, and again, I don't experience it personally because I'm still dealing with clients on a daily basis. So from up here in the world, maybe those numbers are real, but from Main Street, I think they might be off slightly. Not spending $758 million a day, I agree, but truly saving it, I'm going to debate that one until they give me the numbers.
So why is it, I mean, so people look at this money that they have saved, right? Or it's extra, because obviously they're not driving, they're not thinking of the gas, the wear and tear. I know if you belong to good automobile insurance companies, I'm going to do my shameless plug right now, USAA, as a veteran of the military. We keep getting money back from them, which is great. But I mean, what do you think the disconnect is with people going, ooh, we have extra, let's go spend it, instead of, ooh, let's go save it? It's going to end up costing you in the long run. Eventually you will go back to work. Eventually these things will. So why do you think so many people have this image? And you've probably seen it online and probably deal with clients. I got it extra. Why do I need to save it? I'm going to go spend it. I haven't been able to. We may never go back to work. But I mean, here's my thing for you. So we have that response. But how do people get this belief, and we've all probably done it, where you start making money, then all of a sudden your expenditures start matching that. Within a couple months, all of a sudden that extra $1,000, $2,000, whatever it may be, even if it's $500 for your driving, all of a sudden now you find yourself back at square one within a few months. So how do you prevent from doing that? What tips and tricks can folks do to kind of keep this money and not think, ooh, we're rich?
So that is the biggest loaded question. We could spend days on that one because it all comes down to behaviors. And we're born with zero habits, zero beliefs, zero behaviors. And then we're taught all this stuff that by the time you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s gives you this money blueprint. And this money blueprint will teach you what your 4 or 5 personality money traits are. So the one who's a saver is always a saver. Even they're not even thinking of spending money. In good times, bad times, COVID, doesn't matter. They're savers. It's what they do. They don't splurge, they don't travel, they don't buy, they don't frivolous, they don't anything. A spender is somebody who's going to spend the money. It doesn't matter if it's good times, bad times, COVID, or anything. I've met people that make $300,000 a year and don't pay their mortgage because they have no money to show for it. I've met people that make 50 grand a year or 60 grand a year and have 500,000 in a 401k because they don't spend it. It really comes down to, they also didn't have children, so that's a big savings. But everything comes down to where'd you get your training from, who'd you learn from, and what's your behaviors and what are your habits. And that's a huge part, and I don't want to shamelessly plug myself, but that's a huge part of my training when I work with somebody one-on-one is to narrow down what are those behaviors, where did they come from, and how to reprogram them so we can start moving in the right direction. Because there has to be a balance. You don't want to be the one that saves and doesn't enjoy, and you don't want to be the spender who drowns in debt. You got to have a happy medium. And it's literally just training. It's a mindset. That is the difference. It's 100% mindset belief around money.
I love it. I had to ask you a loaded question. Do you think I wasn't going to ask a loaded question? I mean, it came to mind, and it's like it's important because I think so many people live that way. I talk to countless people who are talking about how much money they're saving, but they're not saving. It's like you use the word saving, but truly you're not. You're out on dates. You're like, oh, we can now belong to, I mean, I had a conversation with a buddy, and he was like, hey, we belong to a new Wine of the Month club. And I'm like, wow, that's something new. I mean, weren't you, I mean, okay, that's what you're doing. So I think it's this interesting place that we're in with so many people are trying to figure out what they're doing. So before we get to the break, and we have a couple minutes here, I wanted to continue on this conversation about, you know, what you could do during these times where you are working from home. Now, you told me off camera that you don't go out to lunch. Now, there's a lot of people, even they're remote workers, they're still going out and doing the Chipotle and all, sorry, Chipotle, I'm giving you a shameless plug because that might be where Eric goes because it's right down the street. It's really easy, it's fast, and it's healthy for you, they tell me. So what advice do you have to folks to still enjoy the fact you're working from home, but the importance of eating at home and that money, it adds up after a while, right?
Well, and it goes right back to what we just talked about. You know, that's why I debate this $758 million a day is being saved because Uber Eats has never been bigger. You know, DoorDash has never been bigger. Amazon's going through the roof. Like, there's still a lot of spending. I mean, my own son gets Starbucks delivered on a regular basis versus going to the store. So I personally just have not had caffeine of any kind since COVID started. I've not had a cup of tea. I'm a tea drinker, and I don't go to Starbucks. My Starbucks card, I'm not going to have my gold member status probably this year, which is very sad. But I'm not going. And it all comes down to choices. It will come down to choices. You're home now. If you need to get out, go out on a weekend, but maybe go grocery shopping more and make lunch. I'm not saying never go. You can't live in a world again where you never do. You just always have to have a budget for it. I sit down with clients and we'll be going through and I'll just turn to a married couple and I'm like, when's the last time you guys went on a date together? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, when have you just had you time? We need to enjoy the journey. I listened to this amazing podcast the other day, and we all think there's this destination to get to. We got to get to retirement and have all this money. Well, you might get to retirement, and God forbid, you're not the healthiest person in the world, and now you can't do anything. You have to enjoy the journey. The fun is in getting there and in doing. It's not when you're standing there reaping the reward. The fun was in playing the game. So we got to be able to play the game, but you just have to do it smart, with the right intentions, with a clear budget, and save while having fun. Have lunch, maybe not 5 days a week. Maybe you do it 2.
That works.
I don't know. You just do stuff, but get smart.
I love that answer. And when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking about, so everybody get ready for this one, life insurance and why it's probably not as expensive as you think, and why you should have life insurance. More about this when we come back from the break. Before we left, we were talking about people saving money on their working remote. Now we're going to jump into something that's just as equally important that you should be talking about with everybody, especially if you have a family or if you are a college graduate. Start talking, or not even a college graduate, just going to school, just in your 20s, start thinking about your life insurance. Now, I got a life insurance policy when I turned 18, thanks to the United States Marine Corps. But other people are looking for life insurance too. But one of the biggest holdups I hear all the time from my friends who are like, oh, you have a couple policies, it's so expensive, is exactly that, life insurance being supposedly expensive. So let's bring this back, and we'll bring Cynthia back. So Cynthia, you heard kind of what we're talking about here. Life insurance, this rumor that life insurance is this outrageously expensive thing. Correct us on this. Why should you have life insurance? 1, and 2, affordability. Let's talk about that. So first, talk about why it's important to start a plan even when you're young. So many don't do it.
So there are so many facets to life insurance. People don't even understand it. They just think, if I die, my family makes all the money. What's in it for me? Which I've heard a lot of people say, and I have to say, Eric, no offense, it's mostly men who say, why am I going to leave my wife a ton of money when I'm dead so she can marry the pool boy? It doesn't work that way. There are so many facets to it. Things that people don't know now is a lot of life insurance can be used if, God forbid, we get sick. I know personally, a dear friend of mine, 40 years old, suddenly before COVID, coded a bunch of times. No one knows why, never tested positive for COVID. He's now permanently disabled, has a 5-year-old, 2 teenage daughters, and now a wife who has to take care of him while he's on dialysis 3 days a week. And thank God he had a life insurance with a long-term care rider, so they have income. Because at 40 years old, his life is never going to be the same. How many people, no one's ever said, it's such a shame when they passed, they left their family so much money, they never had to worry about selling the house, how the kids were going to get to school, or how the bills were going to get paid. No one hears that story. What do we hear? If you don't have life insurance, here's what your family's going to do. They're going to pay off your debt, which probably is not the smartest thing, but they don't know any better. They're going to have to either go sell everything you have and you built, beg their family, or create a GoFundMe page. Those are the 3 things that your family has to do if you don't take care of it. And the thing about getting it young is we are never as young and healthy as we are today. It's cheap if you're young. It is expensive if you're unhealthy, overweight, and older. But it doesn't have to be if you do it right the first time. And there's tremendous tax benefits to it. There are so many pros and cons to it. People need to learn the facts about life insurance and not just that it's when you're dead.
So that brings up a good point, and I love that you're saying that, because so many folks that I talk to, they look at life insurance as this just, and you said it best, my wonderful male culture. We seem to advocate all things that are bad ideas. We're really good at that. I mean, we came up with nuclear weapons. We were like, hey, how do we make people glow in the dark and end things? Let's just create nuclear weapons. A man created that, by the way, and that's the problem. Because, yeah.
He also created the bra. Let's get real here.
Of course we did. Of course we did. I mean, yeah. I won't go. We're not having that conversation. But anyways, we did create the bra. It's true. But again, a man sold Victoria's Secret and he could have been a billionaire. Instead, he only sold it for a couple million. But when it comes to life insurance, you're right. People do have this mindset that they won't get the money. But there's a lot of regulatory around life insurance, like the first couple years you get it. And it is more affordable the younger you are with the less health conditions that you have. Now, some people run into, and I hear about it all the time, the questions that they ask during, the life insurance is how much is enough? What looks, and I love it. I heard this question. What makes me look suspicious? I'm like, what do you mean? What makes you look suspicious for your life insurance? What if I got a $4 million policy? I'm like, good for you. I mean, I have some pretty hefty policies. It doesn't mean I'm thinking of committing murder anytime soon or at all, just for dexterity rate. If somebody looks back at this camera, should something happen, I did not commit any murders. Thank you. But no, I had to do that. I watch way too much Netflix. But I mean, where is it with folks understanding that life insurance is good? Be honest about what, your health conditions as you get it, but you need to have it and get the right amount. What is the right amount of life insurance? Say for somebody, let's talk about millennials. They're the biggest ones. A lot of them don't have life insurance. They don't see the value in it at all because they're all day traders and doing whatever they want. What is the right amount for somebody in their late 20s, 30s for life insurance?
So the rule of thumb, and it's a loose rule, is 10 times your income. You can go 20 depending on your situation. But I love what you said, how people don't think they need it. And I've had people say to me, I'm just going to start this Roth IRA because I can get tax-free growth in a Roth IRA on, and you can in cash value life insurance. There's only two legal tax shelters, Roth IRA and cash value life insurance. But so I say to them, here's the deal. Okay, so let's say you put, $5,000 a year into your Roth. And God forbid you pass in year 2, how much does your family get? They're like, well, 10,000. I go, well, you don't know that because what if the markets crash? And what if it went up? You might get 10, you might get 5, you might get 15, but you're certainly not getting 250 to carry your family on. There's nothing is instead of. It's always where you at, how do we build it? The legal tax shelters that life insurance with a cash value can give somebody are astronomical. I have clients that literally buy them, dump hundreds of thousands of dollars in them so they can have a legal tax shelter and a totally tax-free retirement. You got to learn the facts. It's not your mom's life insurance. It's not your grandma's life insurance. Life insurance has evolved, just like your kids aren't playing on the Atari game thing that we got when we were kids. They're playing on the newest and greatest PlayStation. Everything evolves. Everything needs to be taught. We can't judge today based on yesterday. We have to learn the facts. And here's the other thing. In 2018, 1 out of 5 people said they were uninsured. I guarantee you, and I don't know the numbers, that in 2019 during COVID, it's got to be probably 3 out of 5 because most people only have it on the job. And then we had 50,000 people get laid off. True. Now, what is it, 40,000 still out of work?
Yeah.
And now you have nothing. So you're home with your wife and your kids working, or husband and wife working at home with the kids, everybody's home, and now you have no coverage because you have no job. We never heard of the guy or girl who, God forbid, passed away in the middle of the kitchen suddenly? Yeah. Now what does your family do? It's the most selfless thing you can do for the people you love. But I will tell you this, if you do not love your family, you don't need life insurance. There's the people who don't need it.
I love that. If you don't love your family, you definitely, we're going to quote that. That's going to become a tweet, and we're going to run with that. Cynthia says, if you don't love your family, you don't need life insurance. But I think that is so true when it comes to the way people look at life insurance. And I hear such especially and I hate to say it, the millennial generation, they just don't like it. It requires money to go elsewhere. And when we come back from the break, we're gonna cover affordability of life insurance before we jump into our final topics for the day, which I'm sure our listening audience can't wait for, as we're going to be talking about debt and the holidays, because that's not far away. But so when we come back from the break, we will be talking about affordability of life insurance, which I think is so key, because so many people have this just disbelief that it's affordable. They think that they have to I mean, it's less than a car payment. I can tell you that for most people. For a hefty amount of money, it's well less than a car payment. I know mine are below car payments, so that's a good thing. Or I just...
You're driving Ferrari, so...
I wish. Yeah, a Ferrari. Yeah, that would be my Matchbox car on my desk. That's as close as I'm coming to a Ferrari, everybody. But no, I'm a billionaire in mindset only. But it counts, right? Someday I'll join the 3 Comma Club. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about affordability of life insurance and then hop into everybody's favorite topic, the holidays and debt. I know they kind of go together. It's why it fits. So you're going to hear this topic a lot as we go through, but we're going to come back on this topic when we come back from the break. Before the break, we were talking about life insurance and why you need it. And before we move on to talk about the holidays and debt, which I know that's what everybody's here for, is to go, Eric, you're going to talk about the holidays in September. I am. We're going to talk about affordability of life insurance, just because I really want to discuss this. And I think, Cynthia, you could bring us kind of back to the importance and talk about affordability, just briefly. It doesn't have to be long, but let's talk about it. It's really affordable, right? I mean, life insurance it's not going to put you out very bad.
It's really not. And the thing is, the different kinds of life insurance, when you learn the types of life insurance, that's when you figure out the affordability. And here's what I tell everybody. The most expensive life insurance, I just had this conversation before we got on here, the most expensive life insurance is the one that you can't afford to pay. So you have to get what you can afford, and if it's the cheap, temporary kind, that's totally cool. But if you have children and you're running around without it, you just got to ask yourself, who's going to raise my kids if I don't get home? And if it is your wife or your husband, how are they going to afford everything? Because especially if you're a stay-home parent, years ago, they put a price tag on what a stay-home parent would make if they were actually paid a salary. And it was somewhere in the ballpark of $450,000. And I want to know who's going to work for $450,000 a year for 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. However, that was the price tag. But think about what your partner does to take care of these kids. Even if you only had a $250,000 policy, and if you're in your 20s and it's temporary and it costs you, I don't know, maybe $20 for argument's sake, that's not even going to get your partner, if you're not here, through how many years to take care of this child. There's expenses when it comes to children. And there's different things you do at different times in your life to cover different areas. Everything comes down to what can you afford to keep, because it is very expensive if you have it and have to cancel it. Then it's the most expensive. And here's the other thing I say, Eric. The people that have it, just Murphy's Law, they tend to live longer. The ones who have it canceled, unfortunately, that's when tragedy strikes. Or they almost bought it, but they didn't, and that's when tragedy strikes. Again, you don't want your family on GoFundMe. And if you do want your family to go on GoFundMe to beg to pay for what you didn't take care of, then that's a choice as well. There's no wrong here. Well, I think there's wrong. But whatever makes you sleep at night and put your head on the pillow, that's all that matters.
Yeah. So you work with hundreds of clients and across the country. And and I'm sure you're talking about this. I'm sure you're probably talking about this next topic. more than anything else. Hopefully life insurance is priority, one of the top priorities, but I'm sure this one's high on it. Debt and the holidays. They kind of go together. Debt and the holidays is like a sandwich that you don't want to eat because so many Americans, I forget the exact number, but Americans traditionally put themselves in debt every year to make sure that people get things that they'll use once and never use again, or they sit on a shelf and they just never use it at all. I mean, I've seen some interesting gifts in my family's time. Somebody once gave a rain stick. It was plastic and you turned it upside down and beads inside of it would fall. So that was a real gift. Somebody actually spent money on that. I hope they didn't go into debt. But as we jump into this, it's almost fall 2020, Christmas time, holiday time. What's your advice to folks to avoid debt? And besides saying go shop on Amazon. But what is your advice to folks when it comes to debt? We'll jump into the holiday debt, but debt in general during this time of year. We've come from the summer season. Kids are back in school. Most of them are still sitting at their houses, but it's a little less. You're not having to travel and do all that other stuff that you do. Your kids are on more of a schedule for most Americans. So what's your advice to folks when it comes to debt and fall?
So it's really simple. If you can't afford to pay cash, don't buy it. Now, I'm not saying if you have the cash not to use your credit card, but if you can't afford to buy that in cash, so if you want to buy, $1,000 purse and you don't have $1,000 extra to spend on a purse, don't put it on a credit card. It's really a simple rule. If you have credit cards, credit cards are not the problem. It's the revolving debt on a credit card that's the problem. And something we talk about is the rule of 72. I challenge everybody. I met with a guy today and I challenged him. I said, go pull all your statements. And this is the worst part now. So the banks know this. Your statements are all online. Most people don't go paper. Go on and pull your statement. On page 3, because 1 has got all the numbers, 2 is intentionally left blank, and 3's got more info. Go on page 3 online. Look at what your interest rate is. And I'm going to give you a really simple math formula. Take that interest rate, divide it into the number 72, use your phone, your calculator, whatever, and it'll tell you how long for that money to double. So the problem is that we're getting less than 1% at a bank. We're getting 24 on the average debt or interest rate on a credit card if you add store cards and everything else. And now 24 into 72 is 3. So if you have this revolving debt where you're paying a minimum only payment, you're actually doubling your debt every 3 years. So you should not only get out of it, but you should be petrified of it.
That's insane. I mean, but why are people so inept to put themselves in debt? I mean, what is this infatuation in our country? Because we are one of the worst. I believe we actually lead the world in stupid, excessive spending. And what's funny, Cynthia, and this is what cracks me up, and I'm sure you have clients on the wealthier side that you've dealt with, but wealthy people don't spend money like you see in the movies. They don't. Yes, there are some that do, but I've sat down with people who are billionaires and they drive a 2006 Honda Accord. And you ask them why, and they're like, because it gets me from point A to point B. Does my car make me? Like, they have other things. I mean, they live I've talked to a multi-billionaire and asked. He's like, I have a beautiful home. I love my home. My wife loves our home. Our dream was building the home of our dreams. But again, we spent money on that because that's where we're going to spend a majority of our time. He's like, a car. I go places. If I go in those places, I spend money. So why do I need to make the car the most expensive thing where I go? So why do you think Americans have this infatuation with spending money and putting themselves to poverty levels just to have the coolest things?
I'm gonna sum it up real quick.
Sweet.
People buy things to impress people they don't like with money they don't have.
Very true.
They buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't like. And that's it. It's all about status. It comes down to those beliefs. It comes down to everything. I have multimillionaire friends, and yeah, you know what? They're driving Ferraris, but they buy them smart. They buy them used. They search the country to get them. they're paying cash. They're not going in debt. I spoke with a girl the other day, and her son just got a house, and she wants to teach him how to pay off his mortgage quickly. And I'm like, pay off your mortgage quickly? Rates are 2.5%. It's free money. You can pay your mortgage off if you got millions in the bank for your retirement. But a guy in his 30s probably isn't even going to be in this house for 10 years. So why the heck would you worry about paying off your mortgage when it's probably not your last house and the bank doesn't need your money, you do? And it's the same with the cars. I have a nice car because I spend a lot of time in my car pre-COVID visiting clients and everything. But I bought it smart, pre-owned, super low miles. I don't have to worry about it. My car payments, the interest rate is so low that I do borrow the money because why not when it's free? There are less people driving, like little Matchbox cars that I won't say the names of because I know I learned how to do it smart. This world is not about having to go without. It's about learning how to go with smartly.
I love it. So let's talk about smart decisions. So that means we're going to talk about the holidays because we make super smart decisions when it comes to, even my mouth is like, nope, people don't make smart decisions when it comes to the holidays, Eric. You know that. I mean, and I've seen it as we have reached success. We're as guilty, I'll put my hand in the air, of excessive spending. It's stupid. Having like your Christmas tree overflowing. And I see people take these photos, and when we first did it, it was like, cool. You're right. It was a status thing, right? To impress people on Facebook. Like, ooh. But it didn't benefit us at all. And since we've learned, we actually would rather give experiences than a pile of gifts because you remember those. Case in point, folks, what we did when you could do this, we traveled to New York City and spent 8 days in one of the most beautiful cities on the planet so we could be next to my brother, but my kids had that experience. To say you're having Christmas in New York is pretty cool. Unfortunately, New York didn't cooperate and give us a white Christmas, but it was still pretty awesome nonetheless. So why do, and this will be, we'll start this and we'll come back from the break and wrap it up, and we're going to do a series, folks, on holiday spending. So don't worry, when Cynthia comes back in October, we're going to bash this in a little bit more. So we're going to give you a brief taste now. Why do you think, actually, we'll just come back from the break and do this. I'll talk a little bit more just because I'm looking at time for us. But why do you think, you could think about this during the break, why do you think so many people struggle with excessive spending during the holidays? We're going to talk about this when we come back from the break, folks, so get your pens and paper ready. You got to get your first lesson, and I have a feeling Cynthia's going to drop some bombs on you on why you don't need to make sure you have all the latest and greatest toys under your Christmas tree. And we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. Before we went to the break, we were talking the holidays. And I know all of our listeners right now are cringing because we're talking about the holidays and nobody wanted to think about it. We all knew, and we're all probably happy. I know between March and September, it's felt like 10 years, but it's been just the normal amount of time. I know COVID has kind of kept us all in the quarantine game. But what is your thoughts? Let's just jump into this. Before we jump into the series in October, what is up with people just becoming obsessed with putting themselves in holiday debt? Not just regular debt. I understand why that happens. Everybody wants to be the coolest Joneses on the block. But what is it with holidays? And what is your 1 to 2 tips to prevent excessive spending when it comes to the holidays?
I have one question for everybody, and just one. Did anybody get surprised that the holidays are coming this year? Because I know in my lifetime, the couple of years I've been here, they've happened every single year. So there's no shock that, guess what? They're going to come in 3 months, but then they're going to come 12 months later, and 12 months after that, and 12 months after that. So we need to get prepared. Christmas clubs back in the day, use them. Buy things as you go. I just bought some Christmas presents the other day for my son and my sister. I don't need to wait to the last minute and go in debt. That's key number one. Buy small things as you go on sale. It doesn't have to be giant purchases. And stop trying to give your kids everything they want and give them love, quality time, experiences, and life. Because most of them are going to play with one or two toys and everything else is going to go to Goodwill.
That's true. That's very true. So I like it. Christmas doesn't change. It's the 25th of December every year for as long as I've walked this earth. I can tell you that's what's been there. I think the only change that people are going to have is sitting in Santa's lap in COVID. That'll be interesting. I don't know how they're going to do that, but it will be.
That's heartbreaking.
Right?
That's like terrible.
Well, we recently went to the mall. We had to get more, what the heck, coffee. And that's the little Nestle, whatever the hell it's called. I just completely mess it up. Yeah, no, so there we go. And we went there, and I was amazed because I saw them already setting up, were measuring for the Santa's house. And it made my brain go, what the heck? Like, how are they going to sit on Santa? But I mean, that just sort of makes me think of all the money people are going to spend. I mean, and spending is up. Let's face it, spending is up this year. People are still buying. I mean, Amazon has had killer numbers. Why small businesses have been decimated by this. Big business is killing it. Amazon, Lowe's, Walmart, all record numbers. I mean, and the stock market is doing quite well. What did we finish August with? The highest numbers on record since like 86. So money is being spent. That's why I wanted to talk to you today about this, because it cracks me up. So before you go, what are some quick tips to prep for the holidays? How should you save? Let's talk about saving real fast. You got about a minute. What is the number one thing you should do to throw some money aside so you could save money to spend it, so therefore saving for the holidays? And if you do it short term, is there anything that you could do, or are you just screwed?
As I said, pick up little things as you go. But what you just said, spending is up, Walmart, Lowe's, all of that, which is why I challenge that $758 million is saved a day. No, it's not. Guys, one, you got to create a budget. There's holes in your budget that you don't even know you have. That is what I do. I help people create a budget and find the holes. There are bills that you're spending money on that you don't need to even be paying, that you could put liquid cash in your pocket and Christmas won't make a difference. You don't have to go in debt. No one will love you less if they get a card instead of a present. And if they do, they weren't your friends anyway. So say goodbye.
Absolutely. I love that. And Cynthia, I want to thank you again for returning. As you know, Cynthia Frenzy is our financial expert that joins the show. Make sure you go check her out. If you're watching us on C-Suite and Biz TV, make sure you go check out in the channel. You will see that we have the link so you can connect with Cynthia online and follow her on social. So Cynthia, thank you. So I could talk, I swear. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great having you on the show, and we look forward to hearing more and talking about the holidays coming up here in October when you come back with more insight to this wonderful thing called the holidays. So that is our show for today. I hope everybody enjoyed today's show. It's been a blast. Always good talking to Cynthia about finances and everything going on in the world. As always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell, and this is To The Point. So if you want to get a hold of us, if you'd like to be a guest, or you know someone who would like to be a guest on our show, you want to send us some feedback, critique a guest, critique me, give us your complaints. I swear we read them, and we chuckle at you for giving complaints. If you want to send us a compliment, leave a review. Send us an email at hello@tothepointtv.com. That's hello@tothepointtv.com. If you'd like to be a guest, we'll set up a time to meet with one of our producers. Either our producer Jordan or Marina will sit down with you, see a perfect fit, and see where you fit in on one of our shows during the weekdays. Again, I'd like to thank everybody at Biz TV and the C-Suite TV network for airing our beautiful show. So make sure you tune into those networks so you can check out To The Point on those shows. As always, follow us on social. We're everywhere. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Insta. And of course, YouTube. So we appreciate you tuning in whenever you can and watching us there. It's always great to do that. And remember, folks, we're going to continue airing these topics. But if you have a topic It would be great for you to send them in to us. We love it when you come up with topics. Shout out to Linda, who in August reached out to us and asked for a certain topic to be across. We were able to find the perfect guest, hopefully answer her question, and get that across the plate. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's show. We learned a lot. We have a great show coming up for you tomorrow. Excited to continue on with another amazing guest coming up tomorrow. So make sure you tune in. As always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell. On behalf of our entire team here at To The Point, we say thank you. And we also, of course, we can't go without it. Make sure, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.
With Eric Mitchell. Let's get to the point. Sit and enjoy. This is Eric Mitchell. He the host of the show. Get to the point. He is the voice. We needed this, something more. This a daily show that's known for politics and the sports. Ain't no limit to whoever you may see at this point. To celebrities, Eric Key's beast in the joint. As a veteran, put him at ease, then anoint. Every conversation can never be disappointed. Whether tragic or it's happy, Eric will cover whatever's happening. Whether it be your gymnast, toe tapping, talking about nearly any athlete, not taking a back seat. You're never gonna get it past T. Everybody running from it, it's a stampede. But he's on it like this man who took that knee. Mr. Mitchell's way too crafty.